Los Angeles Symposium and Luncheon, addressing the issues that matter most inside our community. From all of us at KBLA Talk 1580, happy holidays. Stay tuned for more details on these incredible upcoming events. KBLA Talk 1580, your voice, your community, your power.
Junior Show. The Jesse Jackson Junior Show. The Jesse Jackson Junior Show. The Jesse Jackson Junior Show. Come on and talk with me. Come on and listen to me. Come on and talk with me. Come on and listen to me. KBLA. Talk 1580, download the app.
I'm Jesse Jackson. Looking forward to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show on KBLA Talk 1580. It's Wealthy Wednesdays on the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show, which indubitably means that we are going to be in conversation with Atiba, and in the second hour, Dr. S. Todd Yeary. I'm particularly honored that Atiba is here today. He is our regular contributor on Wednesdays. Atiba is the former Deputy Executive Director for the National Black Caucus of State Legislators, NBCSL. He is Strategic Alliance Consultant and President of Party Politics US. He's worked as a TV political contributor for BNC News, The Heat, In the Know with Mo, The Leslie Marshall Show, iHeartRadio, 96.3 WHUR, and the One America News Network. He most recently was a guest on Rising, an American daily news and opinion web series produced in Washington, D.C., and the political newspaper The Hill. Atiba, welcome forward to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show and our conversations with none other than yourself. Atiba might be muted. Hi, Atiba.
Hey.
Welcome to the show. Atiba, I'm hoping that we can have a conversation about faith, hope, and fear. Seemingly an infinite triangle when we look at the national political landscape across our country. Obviously, that includes the saber rattling in Venezuela by the President of the United States, the misuse of the pardon power, or better yet, the negative use of the pardon power, because as Americans, we've not seen its positive use. We'll have a conversation about that. There's so much going on in the world, Atiba, and I know that you follow just about every single detail. Share with us some of your thoughts about the current state of affairs.
We're up the creek. I mean, there's a lot. You know, the main thing though that I think that is important to note, and there's, unfortunately, we can't go back to the past and change anything, but when we're talking to our family and friends about voting, and people say my vote doesn't count, I think we're going through this right now because we have to feel the things and the reasons why people like John Lewis were so adamant about voting. And, the situation and where we are, and people are, and on the flip side, I think those people that we talk to who say their votes don't count, or that people that they vote for don't do the things that they want them to do, I think we should listen to them too, because we're really seeing the power of the presidency. And we've often been told the president can't do this, the president can't do that. Well, this guy is really showing us that the president can do a lot more than what we thought.
And I find that somewhat fascinating, because I think at the very inception of the country, this is a question that I wrestled with for nearly 3 years in prison. And I certainly arrived at a conclusion in solitary confinement. My mind in a very narrow hole produces a lot. I wish I could have posted on Facebook every single day while I was incarcerated, but I can share with you that I believe I did find the hope. I think I found it in a book that I ultimately self-published called The Finger of God. And in that book, I had to answer for myself a question. Coming out of the Revolutionary War, what was it that the founding fathers, albeit in their absolute imperfection, what is it that they had to do in order to establish, for white men only, their faith, which is obviously different than our own, in the Constitution of the United States? And what I excavated was an experiment that they must have engaged in as a life work. They placed something in the Constitution called the Finger of God. Alexander Hamilton confirms this 30 days in the New York Advertiser newspaper. He says, "For my part, I sincerely esteem the Constitution." After all, he was there. 30 days later, he says, "I esteem the Constitution." And this is the Constitution without the Bill of Rights. "I esteem the Constitution. For my part, I sincerely esteem the Constitution. But for the finger of God, we never would have agreed on anything in it. We wouldn't have agreed on the Supreme Court, Congress of the United States, or even the powers of the presidency, but they did agree on the finger of God." And in Federalist number 37, James Madison says that it is impossible for a man of pious reflection not to perceive in it, meaning the Constitution, the finger of the almighty hand, which is signally responsible for the rebellion. So faith was a factor, albeit it may not be our faith, but when we understand their faith, much of what we're seeing in the presidency right now is the negative application of the power. But if it's not in the hands of a person of character, then the country itself is not on the foundation as intended. So I heard hope in what you responded to my question in, Atiba, when you said we should be voting, and there are consequences to not voting. But at the same time, I feel as an American, and I think we all do, there is an infinite hope, at least I believe, in the experiment itself and the ability to change it. Your thoughts on faith and hope before we dig in when we come forward into the fear.
Yeah. So when we come back, I'll talk a little bit more about this. But the reason why the United States, the colonists, went to war against England was because they did not like the right way that royalty or the king was imposing his will on the people. We're right back there again in terms of some examples, in terms of what we see, in terms of the methodology of this administration. But, in terms of hope, I often tell people in my conversations that I am the hope and the dream of the slave. And I believe that all of us are.
I think that's absolutely right. Our very important conversation today will deal with faith, hope, and fear. And I can't think of a better person to be in conversation with at this hour than Atiba. More on KBLA Talk 1580 when we come forward. Our conversations with Atiba.
While you're stuck in traffic, we can at least bring you up to speed on the news of the day. You're listening to Jesse Jackson Jr. only on KBLA Talk 1580.
KBLA Talk 1580 remembers Robin Ayers on the 1-year anniversary of her passing. 1 year ago this week, we lost a remarkable and vibrant voice. Robin Ayers touched countless lives through her passion, her love, her service, and her smile, which you could see through the radio. KBLA Talk 1580 honors her memory and celebrates the legacy she left behind. Robin, your spirit lives on in every conversation, in every connection, and in every one of us, inspired by your voice. Gone, but never forgotten. KBLA Talk 1580, where voices matter.
I'm missing you. Tell me why the road turns. I'm missing you. Tell me why the road turns.
If you're one of the millions of Americans behind on your taxes, if you're afraid to open your mail because IRS collection letters could be coming, listen carefully. The IRS is cracking down, taking paychecks, freezing bank accounts, revoking passports. That's a fact. But here's what most people don't know. There are official tax relief programs designed to help struggling taxpayers. Programs that could save you thousands if you qualify. No one knows these programs better than the experts at Optima Tax Relief. Optima's award-winning team will fight to protect your paycheck, your passport, and your property. Their tax attorneys and licensed professionals will work tirelessly to get you the best deal possible with the IRS. Everyday penalties and interest keep piling up, so don't wait. Call Optima now for a free consultation.
Call 800-919-9077. 800-919-9077. 800-919-9077.
Optima Tax Relief.
Some restrictions apply. For complete details, please visit OptimaTaxRelief.com.
Oh no, stomach issues again?
Stomach issues?
Who are you?
Your pancreas. I could be the real reason for your diarrhea, gas, bloating, stomach pain, or loose oily stools.
I thought it was my stomach.
People often do, but any of these symptoms could mean having a condition called exocrine pancreatic insufficiency, or EPI. With EPI, the pancreas doesn't release enough enzymes to break down food, but EPI is manageable. Use the symptom checker on identifyepi.com and speak with your doctor. That's identifyepi.com. Sponsored by AbbVie.
With the new IHOP value menu, $6 is all it takes to go to your happy place, where stacks of pancakes with bacon and eggs are just $6 every day. French toast, sausage, and eggs are, you guessed it, $6. And fluffy omelets come with a side of pancakes and only cost $6. Go to your happy plates every day at IHOP. $7 in some locations. Available every day for a limited time at participating restaurants in the U.S. Hours may vary. No substitutions. Not valid with other discounts or promotions. Prices may vary.
Now back to more of Jesse Jackson Jr. on KBLA Talk 1580.
The Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. The Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. The Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. The Jesse Jackson Jr. Show.
I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. Welcome forward to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show on Wealthy Wednesdays and our regular conversations. Just before we return to our conversation, our producer has a clip that she wants to play to help frame this conversation with how the Soviet Union was created after the Cold War and the process for corrupt charactered leadership and the change to the kind of leadership, even in their society, that represented a change in the world. Why don't we run that clip?
Today's episode is sponsored by Audible. Get a free audiobook with a 30-day trial today by signing up at audible.com/infographics. Go to audible.com/infographics or text infographics to 500-500 to get started. Christmas Day, 1991. Soviet President Mikhail Gorbachev announced, "We are living in a new world." And with these 7 words, the Soviet Union was dissolved and Gorbachev stepped down from his post. After 40 years of the Cold War and the threat of a nuclear holocaust, the world's largest communist state broke up into 15 independent republics, meaning the USA was now handed the accolade of New World Superpower. At its strongest, the Soviet Union had over 5 million soldiers stationed around the world, and they all stepped down without a shot being fired under the new regime. Today, we will explore exactly what came to pass in this episode of the Infographic Show. How and why did the Soviet Union collapse? In the late 1980s, the Soviet Union appeared to be somewhat of a powerhouse, exhibiting a rigid recovery from the invasion of Afghanistan and with an economy that appeared to be performing well. The Union appeared from the surface as powerful as it was back in the 1950s. But looks can be deceiving. Beneath the facade, the Soviet Union was splitting apart, and it had been happening for decades. Although there were many factors at play, some reasons were as follows. Mikhail Gorbachev rose to power in 1985 with plans to reform the nation with a hybrid communist-capitalist system similar to modern-day China. He also planned to ease restrictions on freedom of speech and religion. Before this, millions of Soviets were arrested for speaking out against the state. However, his plan backfired as he discovered that the loosening of control over the people and reforming political restrictions meant the people used their newfound powers to critique the government until they eventually succeeded in pushing for reform. This brand of communism had operated historically on tight central control. The loosening of control led to the abandonment of the entire construct. Back in the days of Vladimir Lenin, Leon Trotsky, and Joseph Stalin, the Soviets were led with strong ideological beliefs tied to Marxism. By the 1960s, the radical policies of the past leaders were abandoned in favor of a more conservative approach. By the 1970s, the Soviet people noticed the rise of the political elite who lived in posh homes, ate in fancy restaurants, and spent their vacations at luxury ski resorts while millions of average Joes died from starvation. Younger generations were less keen to toe the line as their parents had and were willing to step forward and protest for change. These newer generations were more in tune with world events and slowly but surely began to pull at the strands of the political regime. Cold War tensions with the United States rose in the 70s and 80s, and with Ronald Reagan's leadership and the resulting increase in military spending, it seemed that the US had won the nuclear standoff. The Strategic Defense Initiative, or SDI, claimed to be able to blast Russian missiles as they fell, meaning, in theory, the US could win the long-running battle of wits. Reagan also managed to isolate the Soviets from the rest of the world economy, and without export sales in oil, the Soviet economy was severely weakened and limited. The Soviets were unable to turn a corner, and in the 1980s, breadlines were commonplace as poverty soared. Many people didn't have basic clothing or shoes, and under these conditions, it is only a matter of time before the people call out for regime change. And then there is the nation's structure itself. When you have 15 radically different republics under one flag with different ethnicities, cultures, and languages, there are bound to be inherent tensions. 1989 nationalist movements brought about regime change in Poland and Czechoslovakia as the Soviet satellite nations began to split away. As these nations began to pull away, the central apparatus was weakened until it finally collapsed. Due to all these factors, by 1991, the Soviet Union was unable to maintain a normal functioning economy and run a huge military simultaneously. Gorbachev, unwilling to go to war like his predecessors Lenin and Stalin might have done, instead pulled the plug on the military and the 15 republics went their separate ways. Although a devoted Marxist, Gorbachev was an independent thinker who respected the need for reform and planned a restructuring of the economy. This, along with his vision to lessen the control held by central government and a move towards uncensored media, laid the path for total reform. The seeds were planted, and the Soviet Union was no more. So today we looked at the downfall of the Soviet Union. But
Atiba, I'm grateful for our producer for bringing that clip forward, because when the people start starving, when states like the state of Minnesota are threatened with their SNAP benefits if they don't provide the Trump regime certain data that they're requesting with respect to who are receiving those benefits. when the regime itself is willing to threaten the people and their ability to eat, it seems that revolution is inevitable.
Yeah, I mean, we're seeing all these different things, and I know that we're highlighting right now Soviet Union, but these are things that have been going on all over the world, and they're things that, in some instances, we've also been responsible for. Right now, if you remember, there was a phrase that got Malcolm X into trouble after President Kennedy was assassinated when he said, "It's like the chickens coming home to roost." And right now, it does feel as if like the chickens are coming home to roost. I mean, we just had a government shutdown where we were talking about SNAP benefits for Minnesota, but where people all over the country, including our military, were suffering and were not getting their benefits because they were our benefits that they were accustomed to. So right now, I think we're also living at a time, Jesse, where it feels like I'm coming personally to a better understanding of Franklin Roosevelt's "We have nothing to fear but fear itself." And, going through World War II and that era, what we see playing out today is literally what was going on 100 years ago in terms of transfer of wealth, in terms of the divisions, in terms of insecurity, and just things all over the world that seem to be imbalanced. And unfortunately, we seem to be part of of what's causing that.
When I think about the fact that today, President George H.W. Bush and Mikhail Gorbachev announced the end of the Cold War, it seems to me, Atiba, that so much of the fear that the American people are feeling, that there is a direct correlation between a hot war, potentially with Venezuela, a president and a secretary of defense who are outside of the law and threatening not a cold war, but a hot one, and that they're threatening people's food benefits here in the United States, and that food itself is being leveraged by the regime. Is regime change inevitable through the vote?
That's where the hope comes in. And, and I think the question has to be, what and who are we putting our faith in? You spoke about the finger of God. I think that if you look at historically over the course of time, and whether or not you're a Muslim, Christian, Jew, that in scripture, there were periods of times that we read about where the prophets came. And the prophets came at times when people had lost faith in God. We seem to be comfortable with this idea of having "in God we trust" on our money, and yet money is used to corrupt. And it is a debilitating thing. And in terms of all the things that are going on today, one of the things also that I try to impress upon people is that we have the power to pull back our dollars. There's a national boycott that I think is going on right now. I don't know how it is impacting, because I'm here, these numbers in terms of Cyber Monday, there was supposed to be 14. So I don't know if it was trillion or $1 billion in sales. I don't know what happened with that. But in terms of the power of our vote, there are people that are in power, and there are people that are fearful that if they go and vote, that their vote is not going to matter. Something that I look at is fear is what if, faith is even if. So the thing is that I believe that that faith and hope go one and one together. I'm going to also just add this. If you look at a minister's, I don't want to say uniform, but what a minister might wear, not a suit, but in terms of with the collar.
A cloak, a collar, a robe.
I have come to understand that when the black and the white in that, even we talk about black and white in terms of our skin color, even though my skin color, your skin color is not black, but that's how we align. But that black represents faith. The white in the collar represents hope. And so, if we can kind of look at that and just kind of like juxtapose that in terms of our lives, that we can have faith, but we also have hope, and we have hope, but we also need to have faith. In terms of fear, fear is debilitating. I think that we want to try to stay away from from fear. And I think that's where, in the political context of where we live today, that's what a certain political party is playing on, is our fear. And I think we do better with faith and hope.
You know, I find scripturally that faith without works is dead. It requires a balance of good deeds, of positive deeds, of a spirit energy that impacts people fundamentally different than the spirit energy that we're waking up to every single day in the United States. We're being tweeted to death with just negative energy that is really contrary to the idea of ministry. And I think that the early Americans, Atiba, whether we know or like the fact, nothing we can do about it, that our first 15 presidents tolerated slavery, and they obviously tolerated sexism and misogyny and almost every other kind of ism that we can imagine. In their faith, they saw the role of the presidency as ministry, ministering unto people who had been left behind. Clearly, anytime they combined the opposites of a commander of an army and a repriever partner in a single person, that is simply the function of the lineage of David. They saw themselves as restarting the disciple system in their new land that they called the New Israel, but they could never imagine that their new Israel would be the new Israel that we are looking at today. And I am not discussing the Israel in the Middle East. In fact, that was called Palestine at the time of the founding of this nation. They couldn't even imagine that there would be the modern Israel that is as a result of the response, and rightfully so, to the issues that confronted Jewish people during the war itself and the subsequent issues of anti-Semitism that have plagued their people since the inception of history. I raise these questions because the American people at this hour are not just looking for a Democrat or a Republican. They're looking for someone in ministry who has the kind of faith and character necessary to lift what my father called the boats that are stuck at the bottom, that all rising tides, the rising tide that Donald Trump talks about, the economy's doing well, gas prices are coming down. It's not true for those of us who are buying eggs and bacon. It's just not true. But the boats that are stuck at the bottom, the number of boats, not only votes, but boats that are stuck at the bottom of the rising tide is a vast sea.
I want to say preach.
I want
to, and I'm saying that. I'm saying this, Jesse, because this is the time for people of faith. This is the time when people are looking for hope, and they're looking for the words that are going to give them the faith to take the first step. What is the saying? Faith is taking the first step without not seeing the staircase. And so what we have going on here, we can't. I don't think we win by saying, well, if we don't vote, this might not happen. I think we have to say, when we vote, this is going to happen. And when we recognize that we have the power, what is going on right now has been about taking away power. And when we come back after the break, I really hope to be able to talk a little bit more too in terms of how I see that as it related to President Obama and his hope and change agenda.
Yeah, I'd like to hear that myself, because I also, before we go to the break, have to say this, that so much of the Obama administration, which we celebrate, and I was a part of helping create when he was a state senator and ultimate United States senator, and as a former core chairman of his national campaign, I was part of that effort. So much of what's taking place in our world because of racism is a reaction to the fact that they perceived we as a people made progress when an individual made progress, and maybe a political party made progress. And today we're being punished for that. I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. More when we come forward on the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. This is the J Lunch Hour. Hope you're enjoying your ham sandwich, your chicken, and your lettuce, and your tomatoes, and your salads. I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. More when we come forward on the J Lunch program on Jesse Jackson Jr. KBLA Talk 1580.
The biggest names, the best conversations. You're riding with Jesse Jackson Jr. on KBLA Talk 1580.
I'm Amber Payton with BIN News Now. Chicago is racing to finalize its 2026 budget, with Black Mayor Brandon Johnson defending his proposed corporate head tax.
And if you've never gone hungry, you wouldn't know why I have that urgency.
He criticized aldermen pushing an alternative plan that includes higher trash and liquor fees. New York City Mayor Eric Adams is back on the road with just weeks remaining in office. Today, he's in New Orleans for the African American Mayors Association and Combating Anti-Semitism Movement Conference. There, he'll join leaders from across the U.S. and North America to discuss strategies to fight anti-Semitism. And the Obama Presidential Center is set to open next June in Chicago's Jackson Park. The $800 million project faced delays from lawsuits and reviews, but began construction in 2021. The 20-acre site will feature a museum tower, library, auditorium, athletic center, park space, and a garden. Get BIN News Now on demand 24/7 on the iHeartRadio app.
The Crohn's and Colitis Foundation has been at the forefront of inflammatory bowel disease research and care for over 50 years. Learn more about research, education, and support at Crohn'sColitisFoundation.org.
This is the KBLA Sports Minute with Ray Richardson.
In somewhat of a surprising move, the Clippers released veteran point guard Chris Paul. The 40-year-old Paul announced last month that he would be retiring after the season. Clippers GM Lawrence Frank informed Paul that he would not finish the season while the team is in Atlanta to play the Hawks tonight. Paul flew back to LA Tuesday night. Paul played 6 of his 21 NBA seasons with the Clippers. He's the franchise's all-time leader in assists and steals. Paul appeared in 16 games this season off the bench. He was averaging a career-low 2.9 points, 3.3 assists, and 14.3 minutes. Former Lakers center Eldon Campbell passed away early Wednesday morning. The cause of death has not been released. Campbell was 57. The 6'11 Campbell, who grew up in Inglewood and started at Morningside High School, played 8 of his 15 NBA seasons with the Lakers. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson. More news, opinions, and conversation when we come forward on KBLA Talk 1580.
This is KBLA Talk 1580. Talk radio. That's music to your ears. We're unapologetically progressive. KBLA Talk 1580.
This holiday season, KBLA Talk 1580 wishes you and yours joy, peace, and prosperity. As we celebrate with family and friends, we're already looking forward to an exciting first quarter, packed with must-attend events to kick off the new year just right. In January, join us for our inaugural Brotherhood Brunch, bringing together community leaders, change makers, and everyday people for inspiration and connection. February means it's time for our signature Black History Month luncheon, a powerful celebration you won't want to miss. And in March, Women's History Month, we're once again hosting our State of Black Women in Los Angeles Symposium and Luncheon, addressing the issues that matter most inside our community. From all of us at KBLA Talk 1580, happy holidays. Stay tuned for more details on these incredible upcoming events. KBLA Talk 1580, your voice, your community, your power.
Are you coughing a lot, especially at night? Are you often short of breath? Are you using your rescue inhaler often? These could be signs that your asthma is not under control. To keep your asthma in check and help prevent an asthma attack, ask your healthcare provider for an asthma action plan. This is a personalized plan you create with your doctor that shows you what to do and what medicines to help control your asthma and to use when you're having a hard time breathing or when you're having an asthma attack. Please don't wait until you're having an asthma attack. Do something about it now. Schedule a visit with your healthcare provider today to make that action plan and take control of your asthma. For more tips and resources on the management of asthma, visit luma-edu.com. This message is brought to you by Amgen and AstraZeneca.
With the new IHOP value menu, $6 is all it takes to go to your happy place, where stacks of pancakes with bacon and eggs are just $6 every day. French toast, sausage, and eggs are, you guessed it, $6. And fluffy omelets come with a side of pancakes and only cost $6. Go to your happy plates every day at IHOP. $7 in some locations. Available every day for a limited time at participating restaurants in the U.S. Hours may vary. No substitutions. Not valid with other discounts or promotions. Prices may vary.
Oh, how's that flu, babe? Did you take Dayquil Intense Flu yet?
Nah, I got this. Ugh, okay, I don't got this.
You stay on the couch, and I'll grab the Dayquil.
Undo your flu symptoms with Dayquil Intense Flu. Dayquil Intense Flu provides powerful relief of your flu symptoms.
I'm ready for that to-do list.
Wow, you do got this.
Dayquil Intense Flu. The daytime coughing, aching, fever, under your flu, medicine. Use as directed, keep out of reach of children.
This is the story of the one. As the purchasing manager at a manufacturing plant, she knows the only thing more important than having the right safety gear is having it there when you need it. That's why she partners with Grainger for auto reordering, so her team members can count on her to have cut-resistant gloves on hand, and each shift can run safely and efficiently. Call 1-800-GRAINGER, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
An official message from Medicare.
Couple more minutes, and we'll start this month's book club.
You know, I usually love a plot twist, but this year, I'm comparing my options during Medicare open enrollment.
You can't assume your current health or drug plan is the best one for you.
And you got to make sure your drugs are covered. That's important.
So is saving money.
Review all your options at Medicare.gov. Open enrollment ends December 7th. Paid for by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services.
You're listening to Jesse Jackson Jr. on KBLA Talk 1580.
The Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. 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 King Volley drops the beat. Come on and talk with me.
I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. You're listening to Season 2 of the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show, celebrating our first anniversary this week of being on the radio. Please download the podcast. Please share the Facebook post if you're watching us on social media. And please put KBLA Talk 1580 under your Christmas tree. I believe on our website you can come and support KBLA, but you can also stop by KBLA in Lamert Park. And since we're not spending our money at Target, and we're not spending it with Amazon, and we are withdrawing our enthusiasm from people who have withdrawn their enthusiasm from us. Tebow was talking a few moments ago about not only using and leveraging our votes, but using and leveraging our dollars to do something about it. You got a little money on your hands because you're not shopping at Target, you're not shopping at Home Depot, you're not shopping at the other companies like Amazon that have been listed by, in part, the leadership of Jamal Bryant and others. Come on by and bring that check to KBLA Talk 1580. Atiba, just before we came forward, you said there was a thought that you wanted to share with our listening audience.
Yeah, and I don't want to be insensitive, but when I think back to the 8 years of President Obama, I think about a number of things. One, he won, and he had a message of hope, and he talked about change. And by 2016, when he was leaving in office, one of the things he said is that you've always been the hope. You've always been the change. It was about the fact that that's in us. And a lot of us felt that we had to defend him because the other party was attacking him. And oftentimes our sensitivities came into play. So we played on they're just doing this because of racism. And that's not to say this wasn't about racism, but that was the surface. And that's not to say it's not about sexism. That's on the surface. It was that there are those in this country who want to be in power, who are really in the minority, who don't want us to hope. What he gave was us hope. And if you connect the dots, he couldn't win a presidency. And I was a registered Republican at the time. He couldn't win the presidency without getting Republican votes. He couldn't win the presidency without getting all these different communities to vote for him. And he did so because he offered hope. And when they attacked him, they attacked that hope. and we let our foot off the pedal. Because if you see what's happening now with in 2000, from 2008 to 2010, President Obama had the House and the Senate, as well as the presidency. And we see this president has the House, the Senate, and the presidency. And so let's try to mirror and kind of see, okay, so what happened in 2010 to change that? People came out and voted because they felt like their hope or that change wasn't happening fast enough. Well, my hope is that we recognize and get the lesson and realize that in 2010, when we could have sent more people to Congress to help, to push the agenda, that this go round now we have to do that again. But I see some hope when I'm looking all around the country in places like Mississippi and Georgia, when I'm looking at New Jersey and Virginia, when I'm looking at New York, and when I'm looking at what happened in Tennessee yesterday. Even though Democrats didn't win, they put a big dent in that 22% that the president received in 2024. So there's hope, and hope is coming, but we also have to recognize that we are the hope that we're looking for.
You know, I want to talk about the birth of hope for a moment, because I don't want there to be any illusions, or I don't want to romanticize hope. We registered hundreds of thousands of voters in 1983 to elect Harold Washington, the mayor of Chicago. Harold Washington would not have been mayor in Chicago without voter registration. Insults from Mayor Jane Byrne and a series of mayors prior to Jane Byrne that led to his victory. To this day, Barack Obama says that Harold Washington's campaign inspired him, but Barack Obama wasn't in Chicago yet. He was at Harvard. I was part of that campaign to help elect Harold Washington. A number of people here helped shape hope on the ground in Chicago. Jesse Jackson here in Chicago helped shape hope in 1984 and 1988. And you couldn't go to Jeremiah Wright's church, Trinity United Church of Christ on 95th Street here in Chicago, get married in that church. I was at Barack Obama's wedding to Michelle Obama, who attended Whitney Young High School with my sister. They were classmates and graduates. Santita was Michelle's best woman at the wedding. You can't grow up in Chicago in the 80s and in the 90s and in the early 2000s unless you came from a community that was shaping hope locally and propelled it in the form of national presidential campaigns that helped provide the message of hope that became Barack Obama. And I think we're going to have to dig, Atiba, a little bit deeper into the spiritual foundation of people who provided that construct, because we might find a few candidates here. You know, I like Gavin Newsom. I like J.B. Pritzker. They've not given me a reason to not like them. But their mettle on the question of hope has to be forged locally with local demands that hold them accountable. Tavis Smiley was part of that accountability, and Jesse Jackson Jr. was part of that accountability. Jim Clyburn was part of that accountability. Maxine Waters in California was part of that accountability. Cornel West was part of that accountability. And when the brother wanted to be more conservative than we would let him be, we walked him back to hope. When it was easy to do something in Iowa or to criticize or blame Black youth for something, it was easy to go in that direction, but then we walked him back to hope. No. We're not going to do that at Howard University. We're not going to have that debate at Howard University and criticize Black people like Clinton did us with Sister Soldier. We're not going to do that. We're going to keep hope alive. So framing hope at the local level helps frame these candidates. And that is a tension that is real and well-deserved and not separate and apart from local accountability. And people kept candidates' feet to the fire on the questions of the legitimate needs of the people, which ultimately manifested themselves in Barack Obama.
I'm wrestling with where to go with that one, because part of it too is that there is a national conversation that we, I think, deserve to have. And part of that national conversation goes to something that's really tearing at me, and that is parenting. we're seeing, whether or not we want to recognize it or acknowledge it or not, that there's crime that's really rampant in the country. I believe that it is tied to hopeless people feeling that their wages are too low. They don't have access to health care. Food is expensive. And yet we still don't talk about that there are a lot of people who have had children at very younger ages that goes back to, I think, the crack epidemic. And I'm saying a lot of things to unload or whatever with that. So when we say we walk people back from a conversation, or someone back from a conversation, I think part of the reason why we're in the depths or of despair as a country is not just African American or white or Hispanic. It's a country. It's a cultural thing. We started talking about what was going on in Soviet Union, and I'll break there and let us go to break.
I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. More on KBLA Talk 1580 when we come forward.
We can at least bring you up to speed on the news of the day. You're listening to Jesse Jackson Jr. only on KBLA Talk 1580.
Established in 2020 during a time of deep racial unrest across our state and country, the Black Freedom Fund was created to make sure that leaders and organizations working to support Black communities and build power have the resources they need to stay in the fight for the long haul. We believe that those closest to the issues impacting our communities know best how to solve them. That's why in just the last 5 years, we've granted more than $45 million to over 200 grassroots organizations across California. That is the largest collective investment in Black organizing in history, and we're just getting started. We are clear-eyed and committed, more now than ever, to our people, our power, and our possibility. Join us in creating a future where Black people harness their full power to shape their lives and realize a just world for all. Learn more at fundblackfreedom.org. That's fundblackfreedom.org. The Black Freedom Fund is proud to sponsor Conversation Live Altadena Rising with James Farr on KBLA Talk 1580.
In California, all workers have rights, no matter their immigration status. If you or a family member were detained by federal immigration authorities and did not receive your final paycheck, contact the Labor Commissioner's office. You can file a claim even if you left California or the U.S. Call 833-526-4636 from the U.S. or outside the country 001-833-526-4636. Document wage theft and report it to the Labor Commissioner's office.
Aging happens, but giving up what you love, that's optional. This holiday season, start a conversation with your family about building habits that support brain health and keep life fulfilling. With AARP's Staying Sharp, you'll find tools, videos, recipes, and even games to help make healthy living simple and fun. Don't just age, thrive. Visit stayingsharp.org/get started.
This holiday season, KBLA Talk 1580 wishes you and yours joy, peace, and prosperity. As we celebrate with family and friends, we're already looking forward to an exciting first quarter, packed with must-attend events to kick off the new year just right. In January, join us for our inaugural Brotherhood Brunch, bringing together community leaders, change makers, and everyday people for inspiration and connection. February means it's time for our signature Black History Month luncheon, a powerful celebration you won't want to miss. And in March, Women's History Month, we're once again hosting our State of Black Women in Los Angeles Symposium and Luncheon, addressing the issues that matter most inside our community. From all of us at KBLA Talk 1580, happy holidays. Stay tuned for more details on these incredible upcoming events. KBLA Talk 1580, your voice, your community, your power.
KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
KBLA Talk 1580 reminds you, when we fight, we win. The Youth Justice Coalition is challenging America's addiction to incarceration and discrimination. YJC works to dismantle policies leading to mass incarceration, law enforcement violence, and the school-to-prison pipeline. Their approach? Transformative justice, community intervention, free LA high school, legal defense, and system monitoring. YJC promotes safety without relying on prisons. Their goal? Prevent system contact and help people exit the system through direct action, advocacy, and education. Want to get involved or need help? Call 323-235-4243. That's 323-235-4243. Join YJC in creating change. When we fight, we win. KBLA Talk 1580, your voice for justice. This is a community call to action from KBLA Talk 1580.
An official message from Medicare.
Couple more minutes, and we'll start this month's book club.
You know, I usually love a plot twist, but this year, I'm comparing my options during Medicare open enrollment.
You can't assume your current health or drug plan is the best one for you.
And you got to make sure your drugs are covered. That's important.
So is saving money.
Review all your options at Medicare.gov. Open enrollment ends December 7th. Paid for by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services.
Now back to more of Jesse Jackson Jr. on KBLA Talk 1580.
The Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. 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 King Folly, drop the beat. Come on and talk with me. Come on and listen to the
Jesse Jackson Jr. Welcome forward to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show on KBLA Talk 1580. It's Wealthy Wednesdays, and we are in conversations with Atiba. And Atiba, just before I let you finish that point, please share with our listeners how we can follow you, how we can support you, and about some of your work. The books.
Oh man, that's a great. Thank you for that. So I wrote a book, and then on my website for the book, which is novelsbyatiba.com, I also wrote a series of 9 essays that are part of a bigger essay, which is putting people first. And then also you can follow me on social media. It's just my first and last name on Facebook and on Instagram, as well as on X, formerly known as Twitter.
Your first and last name?
Atiba, A-T-I-B as in boy, A. Last name, M-A-D-Y-U-N.
Thank you, Atiba. Atiba, just before we came forward on the break, you wanted to make a point that I know that we've commercial interrupted. Go ahead.
No, it's okay. Means I was talking too long. No, I'll just say, that we often don't want to be critical of ourselves. And even during the Obama years, I wrote several blogs at the time that some people were surprised that I wrote that weren't necessarily meant to criticize the president. But I don't believe that President Obama was as well served as he could have been had we been, and I shouldn't say just more critical, but more just assertive to say, we got you here, but we need you to do this. And we're going to push you to do this, because the reality is it's the people that push policy. You can try and get elected officials to do X, Y, and Z, but they won't do it unless you actually do it. That's why they say call your congressman, call your elected officials, write letters, do marches, show up at the Capitol. These are all ways to get them to know where our positions are. But where I was going with that too is that often we are we don't want to talk about the fact that we have issues, and I think that some of these issues, yes, are definitely grounded in some systemic things, and whether or not it's being able to have access to capital, whether or not it's high wage jobs or access to higher education. But there are things that we also can do. And of course, we say it starts with voting, but it's also deeper. And as you were mentioning before, in terms of registering people to vote, all those things are encompassed in all this. But ultimately, we all can be better as people, just as human beings, in terms of being empathetic. So I'm saying all that and kind of going around without necessarily touching where I had before the break. mostly because I don't want to come across as being critical, but I do think that there are things that the people want to see us do, and whether or not it's something as simple as pulling up our pants or as simple as, figuring out how do we work to get a better way forward. That's why I think we're going through a lot of the things that we're going through today, because not only have we lost hope, it's not just about having fear. I just think there's a sense of despair, and coming together, recognizing that we're all in this together, and that the issues that happen in an urban environment could be very similar to ones happening in a rural environment, even though we might not have the same color skin. All of these things are American issues, and all of us are brothers and sisters. And so I just feel like, just overall that it's okay for us to be critical, but it's also like to be critical from a standpoint of how do we get better.
I absolutely agree with that, and I can't improve upon that. I wish I had absolutely more time to share on this thought, and I know we'll pick back up on it in future conversations. Atiba, share with us your word of hope. We have about 4 minutes. Take your time.
So my hope right now, first off, is that we recognize that we still have the power to change our situation. And I'm very grateful that we took time today to talk about some historical things that may have happened in another country, and hopefully painted a picture that people recognize that is happening right here in this country. It's not too late to stop it, but the train has definitely left the building. That when I talk about voting, and when I wear a shirt that says midterms effing matter, and there is actually a website for that it is to shock us, to shock people that see it, so that they want to wear the message and recognize that we are the spark behind any movement, that we can't just keep sitting back and just waiting for somebody to come save us. Because here's the truth. I'm going to use the word ain't nobody coming to save us but us. This is that time when we can look back at the civil rights movement and see the power of men and women and children locking arms and marching. This is the moment that we can look back and see, why did they call the World War II generation the greatest generation? This is the generation that brought forward Tuskegee Airmen. This is the generation that brought forward larger and louder voices talking about integration and segregation, because we went and fought in wars, but when we came home, we weren't allowed to be American. And when we go all the way back, I said earlier that I like to say that I am the hope and the dream of the slave. We all are the hope and the dream of the slave. And I even believe that there was something that happened for me being in South Africa a few years ago during the 20-year anniversary of the first free elections in South Africa. And I remember and recall the lines of people who stood in line for days to vote. And going into South Africa, going to Soweto, going to Pretoria, going to Cape Town, going to see these things, visiting Mandela's home, it made me think that they saw in us something and they took it, and that they saw something, they did things there that we can take. And so I'll kind of end it with this, and that is, it always seems impossible until it's done. And that makes so much sense. So my last words today of hope are, just remember, it always seems impossible until it's done.
Our conversations with Atiba always keep hope alive. Atiba, look forward to our conversation next week.
Look forward to it. Thank you, Jesse.
I'm Jesse Jackson Jr., listening to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show on KBLA Talk 1580. More when we come forward with Dr. S. Todd Yeary.
KBLA 1580 Santa Monica.
I'm Amber Payton with BIN News Now. Chicago is racing to finalize its 2026 budget, with Black Mayor Brandon Johnson defending his proposed corporate head tax.
And if you've never gone hungry, you wouldn't know why I have that urgency.
He criticized aldermen pushing an alternative plan that includes higher trash and liquor fees. New York City Mayor Eric Adams is back on the road with just weeks remaining in office. Today, he's in New Orleans for the African American Mayors Association and Combating Anti-Semitism Movement Conference. There, he'll join leaders from across the U.S. and North America to discuss strategies to fight anti-Semitism. And the Obama Presidential Center is set to open next June in Chicago's Jackson Park. The $800 million project faced delays from lawsuits and reviews, but began construction in 2021. The 20-acre site will feature a museum tower, library, auditorium, athletic center, park space, and a garden. Get BIN News Now on demand 24/7 on the iHeartRadio app.
The Crohn's and Colitis Foundation has been at the forefront of inflammatory bowel disease research and care for over 50 years. Learn more about research, education, and support at Crohn'sColitisFoundation.org.
This is the KBLA Sports Minute with Ray Richardson.
In somewhat of a surprising move, the Clippers released veteran point guard Chris Paul. The 40-year-old Paul announced last month that he would be retiring after the season. Clippers GM Lawrence Frank informed Paul that he would not finish the season while the team is in Atlanta to play the Hawks tonight. Paul flew back to LA Tuesday night. Paul played 6 of his 21 NBA seasons with the Clippers. He's the franchise's all-time leader in assists and steals. Paul appeared in 16 games this season off the bench. He was averaging a career-low 2.9 points, 3.3 assists, and 14.3 minutes. Former Lakers center Eldon Campbell passed away early Wednesday morning. The cause of death has not been released. Campbell was 57. The 6'11 Campbell, who grew up in Inglewood and started at Morningside High School, played 8 of his 15 NBA seasons with the Lakers. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson. More news, opinions, and conversation when we come forward on KBLA Talk 1580.
Celebrate the soul of the holidays and support Altadena and Pasadena. Join us on Monday, December 15th, 7 p.m. inside the Bram Goldsmith Theater at the Wallace in Beverly Hills for Soul of the Holidays, a joyful night of Motor City Soul, gospel, and holiday classics featuring an 18-piece band, all-star vocalist, and community choirs, all in support of the Black LA Relief and Recovery Fund. This performance comes at a pivotal time for many in Altadena and Pasadena. This is their first holiday season since the devastating Altadena Eden Canyon fire, which destroyed homes and community spaces. While the physical losses are immense, the power of community remains, and your attendance directly supports recovery, resilience, and renewal. So, be sure to join us Monday, December 15th, 7 p.m. inside the Bram Goldsmith Theater at the Wallace in Beverly Hills for Soul of the Holidays, benefiting survivors of the Altadena Eden Canyon fire. For ticket information, just log on to tickets@thewallace.org. That's tickets@thewallace.org. This is a community call to action from KBLA Talk 1580 and the Black Freedom Fund.
The Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. Oh, 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 oh. The Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. Oh, 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 oh. The Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. Oh, 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 oh. The Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. Oh, 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 oh. Come on and talk with me. Come on and listen to me. Come on and talk with me. Come on and listen to me. KBLA Talk 1580. Download the app.
I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. Listening to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show on KBLA Talk 1580. Wealthy Wednesdays with Dr. S. Tavieri. Dr. Yuri will be joining us in just a few moments. Sitting here reflecting on my youth when I was growing up. And I was home alone when the door started knocking really, really hard, and I was a little bit concerned. So I called Dad and said, Dad, hey, there is this guy standing in our driveway knocking on the door, and he's knocking on it real hard. What do you want me to do? And Dad said, what's he look like? I said, well, he's got this tam on his head. He said, oh, that's Donnie. Let Donnie and tell him I'll be there in a few moments. So I opened the door. I said, are you Donnie? He said, yes, I'm Donnie. I let him into the house. I said, Dad said he'll be here in just a few moments. I then went back into the front part of our home, and Donnie sat at a grand piano that still exists in our home. And it was a grand piano that he bought for my sister, Santita. And he began playing. He was none other than the great Donny Hathaway. And when I reflect upon that memory, just listening a few moments ago to This Christmas by Donny Hathaway, what a loss our community experienced. Donny was troubled and he took his own life, and his contribution, far too short for the enormous contribution that he gave to all of us all over the world in his framing of Christmas and so many other spirit-based songs that helped our movement and propelled our faith. Missing Donny Hathaway at this moment. Todd Erie will be joining us in just a second. I want to talk, while we do wait for Todd, about the path to hope. Because there is a path to hope in the United States. I know something about this path because in 1984, I campaigned for my father by helicopter. Jonathan and I traveled from Des Moines to Cedar Rapids to Davenport to Waterloo and Iowa City. And we spoke in African-American churches and community gatherings on behalf of our father, who we wanted to be president of the United States. Those are the primary significant Black populations in the state of Iowa. Spent a lot of time on farms, meeting people and hugging people and milking cows and working on farms and identifying with people who were just basic and decent people, asking them through our family to give our father a chance. We were speaking for this enigma in American history, Jesse Jackson. Everything they've ever read or heard, with the family touch, we softened the hearts of the people of Iowa and they welcomed us into their homes. And then we went from there to New Hampshire, identified not only with the African-American populations, but progressive politics, the Dunphys, the Dunphy hotels, Nadine Hack and her husband, Jerry, who are still with us. Grateful that they are regular friends of the Jackson family, and they welcomed us into their state. And Reverend fared fairly well in New Hampshire. And then we turned to Super Tuesday, having almost no money left. All of the states were gathered where large numbers of African Americans could vote. And Reverend Jackson came in first or second in a number of those southern states, more than any other African American ever. In fact, Shirley Chisholm, we talked about her campaign, but she never made it to Iowa. She never made it to the Iowa caucuses. She never made it to New Hampshire. When Jesse Jackson changed the rules after his campaign in 1984, began asking questions because of the winner-take-all system, where are my delegates? How is it that I can spend millions of dollars in these states, come in first, second, or third, and come to the Democratic convention with no delegates? The Democratic Party had to change its rules to award Jesse Jackson the delegates that he earned due to a proportional recommendation that if our voters come to the polls, they need to be awarded in the Democratic primary with their seats at the table by the time we get to the Democratic convention. That was the path of hope for Jesse Jackson. By 1988, they took South Carolina, Jesse Jackson's birth state, out of Super Tuesday, and they moved the primary up. And by moving that primary up in 1992, that primary gave us Jim Clyburn, who served in that seat since 1992. And Jim Clyburn's legendary role in Democratic politics and in state politics have laid the foundation for every progressive candidate that has turned that corner heading to Super Tuesday, including saving and rescuing the campaign of Joe Biden. Barack Obama obviously won the state of Iowa in large measures because African-American voters allowed and were used to the idea of supporting a candidate who could bring hope without having to fight with Democrats over his fair share of delegates. Barack Obama was not successful in New Hampshire, but because Jesse Jackson moved the primary of South Carolina forward, African Americans who represent 35 to 40%, maybe even more, of that state's electorate gave Barack Obama a solid victory in South Carolina, the state that seceded from the Union in the Civil War first, before Abraham Lincoln was even sworn in. And he turned that corner with hope because African Americans concluded that we can actually win the Democratic nomination for President of the United States. I say that to say that hope does not just happen. It does not just drop out of the sky and we get into personality politics and the guy with the best haircut or the most handsome person or whatever Harvard says, the most liberal positions that make sense for the American people stand for these positions. Democrats have to dig deeper in order to arrive at hope. And they have to cover ground that is unconventional. Jesse Jackson did that. I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. More on KBLA with Dr. S. Todd Yeary when we come forward on the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show.
It's afternoon drive time with Jesse Jackson Jr. Only on KBLA Talk 1580.
KBLA Talk 1580 remembers Robin Ayers on the 1-year anniversary of her passing. 1 year ago this week, we lost a remarkable and vibrant voice. Robin Ayers touched countless lives through her passion, her love, her service, and her smile, which you could see through the radio. KBLA Talk 1580 honors her memory and celebrates the legacy she left behind. Robin, your spirit lives on in every conversation, in every connection, and in every one of us, inspired by your voice. Gone, but never forgotten. KBLA Talk 1580, where voices matter.
I'm missing you. Tell me why the road turns. I'm missing you. Tell me why the road turns.
If you're one of the millions of Americans behind on your taxes, if you're afraid to open your mail because IRS collection letters could be coming, listen carefully. The IRS is cracking down, taking paychecks, freezing bank accounts, revoking passports. That's a fact. But here's what most people don't know. There are official tax relief programs designed to help struggling taxpayers. Programs that could save you thousands if you qualify. No one knows these programs better than the experts at Optima Tax Relief. Optima's award-winning team will fight to protect your paycheck, your passport, and your property. Their tax attorneys and licensed professionals will work tirelessly to get you the best deal possible with the IRS. Everyday penalties and interest keep piling up, so don't wait. Call Optima now for a free consultation.
Call 800-919-9077. 800-919-9077. 800-919-9077.
Optima Tax Relief.
Some restrictions apply. For complete details, please visit OptimaTaxRelief.com.
Oh, how's that flu, babe? Did you take DayQuil Intense Flu yet?
Nah, I got this. Okay, I don't got this.
You stay on the couch, and I'll grab the DayQuil.
Undo your flu symptoms with DayQuil Intense Flu. DayQuil Intense Flu provides powerful relief of your flu symptoms.
I'm ready for that to-do list.
Wow, you do got this.
DayQuil Intense Flu. The daytime coughing, aching fever under your flu medicine. Use as directed. Keep out of reach of children.
Hey, can you blow up some balloons for Jack's party?
I can't. I'm so congested.
You need Sinex Saline from Vicks.
Sinex Saline nasal spray.
Yeah, just Sinex. Breathe.
Sinex Saline instantly clears everyday congestion associated with colds and year-round allergies with a gentle, ultra-fine mist that's no mess and easy to control.
Daddy, we need more balloons.
On it.
Enjoy life's important moments without congestion. Try Sinex Saline from Vicks. Just Sinex. Breathe. Use as directed.
Now back to more of Jesse Jackson Jr. on KBLA Talk 1580.
The Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. 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 King Volley, drop the beat. Come on and talk with me. Come on and listen to me. Come on and talk with me. Come on and listen to me. KBLA Talk 1580.
I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. Welcome forward to the Jesse Jackson Jr. shows. It's Wealthy Wednesdays, and Dr. S. Todd Urey is a bit delayed, and he'll be joining us hopefully shortly. But I want to finish opining just before I bring Atiba forward on the conversation I was having in the first part of this hour. Hope in the Democratic Party is structurally alive. It's structurally alive. It doesn't just drop out of the sky in the embodiment of a person. It is structurally alive because we can win the Democratic nomination in our party. It's not structurally alive in the Republican Party. I wouldn't care if you gave $500 million to your favorite African-American candidate and you made them run the gambit of states to become the Republican nominee for President of the United States. And you had to go through all of the states that are in rebellion right now, that are resisting any progress in urban America, that have no problem with National Guardsmen, the DEA, ATF, and all of the other alphabet boys and girls occupying our cities. There is no way an African American with $1 billion structurally running for president in the Republican primary process is going to win. I wouldn't care if it's the guy who came up with Godfather Pizza. They made him take his mask off and convinced him that COVID wasn't real, and he sat there and died because of COVID. I wouldn't care if you resurrected Colin Powell, and he was a great American. He met all of the criteria that made them feel particularly comfortable. I wouldn't care if you gave them $500 million. They can't get through Texas, can't get through Arkansas, can't get through the structural arrangement of trying to be the Republican nominee. You have to be a Black appointee to get through that situation right there. And then you're probably going to end up at HUD. You will not be Secretary of State. You will not be Secretary of Defense when you run through that arrangement. But in the Democratic Party, hope is structurally alive. And Jesse Jackson made it so. Now, if the Democratic Party ever decides they want to put South Carolina back in Super Tuesday, and all that's left is to run through Iowa, caucus through Iowa, and then run through New Hampshire. And by the time an African-American candidate gets through that process, there'll be no money left in their campaign to even talk to Black people or brown people or to the dispossessed in Alabama, Mississippi, Georgia, Tennessee, Louisiana, all of those states where African Americans overwhelmingly still live and vote Democratic. Jesse Jackson structured hope in the party because we have a chance. And that same hope came to Joe Biden's rescue in 2000. And we stopped Donald Trump the first time because Joe Biden's campaign was faltering, a weak showing in Iowa, a weak showing in New Hampshire, but the endorsement of Jim Clyburn in South Carolina, we exacted from him with the South Carolina victory a couple of very, very important contributions, not only to American history, but to the trajectory of the nation itself. We exacted it from him. We demanded an African American on the Supreme Court. And that would lead to the second great dissenter, maybe the third, behind Ruth Bader Ginsburg, and it's only because she hasn't served as long, Ketanji Brown Jackson. South Carolina was part of the price that we asked for coming out of that process. When they were in Iowa together, Joe Biden was running against Kamala Harris, and Kamala Harris stung Joe Biden in a debate. When Joe Biden was touting his civil rights record, Kamala Harris had a retort, something to the effect that she desegregated a school, and Joe Biden was grinning and laughing over about his work for civil rights, and he had taken certain positions in the United States Senate. And Kamala Harris essentially knocked the grin off of his face when she said, "I'm that young Black girl that desegregated that particular school." And wasn't nothing funny about that. And how she ended up on the ticket is because we demanded that an African-American woman be on the ticket in South Carolina. And therefore, Hope was alive. And when Joe Biden decided he did not, reluctantly, was incapable of running for president for health reasons in the last process, Joe Biden and others were concerned about transferring the power of the presidency and the nomination to Kamala Harris. Let's be honest. All the books have been written about it now. He even said, kid, which I found to be offensive, Vice President of the United States, he called her a kid. He said, kid, listen, I don't want any daylight while you're running for president between my positions and your positions. Well, what kind of freedom is that? If you've got to carry all of Joe Biden's water with you while you're running for president. Kamala Harris talks about the internal difficulties in her new book. So, hope is structured into this process. It's not an accident. I'm grateful that Dr. S. Todd Yeary has now joined us. Dr. Yeary is the pastor of a church in Baltimore, Maryland. He is also former member of the National Action Network Board, also an executive director of the National Rainbow Push Coalition. He's a lawyer, a full-time pastor, both with 1 foot in the pulpit and 1 foot in the courtroom of America. Dr. Yeary, welcome forward to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show.
Good to be with you, my brother. I'm actually leaving one of the said courtrooms in trial this week, but certainly glad to be able to get out in time to have a conversation with you.
I appreciate you so much. And I'm also welcoming back to the program Atiba from the first hour, Conversations with Atiba. Atiba, welcome forward to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show in hour number 2.
Nice to be back with you, and nice to be with you.
My question, Dr. Yeary, is this question of hope. Atiba brought it forward in the first hour in a very, very profound way. And I'm struggling with this idea that that hope isn't just a personality-based candidate for office, but it is structured into a process that revives the spirit of the American people. Let me pitch that question to Dr. Yeary.
Well, I can only imagine how profound the conversation was in the first hour. And so I'm going to try to show up in the middle of the movie and not mess up the plot. Yeah, I had a ticket. I was just a little late getting to my seat. So the structure of hope and political power is outcome based, right? Do we yield from the process the return on our self-interest by participating in this process? You were certainly waxing eloquently about the opportunities in one party versus the other. I think when we evaluate Reverend Jackson, your father's contribution is he changed the structure, not just the appearance. Unless we change the structure, which is process driven, you cannot really get to any substantive change in terms of the outcome. The problem is that while we're foreclosed from any significant participation in one party, unless you're the Secretary of HUD, or you might be the Surgeon General until a pandemic hits the country, and then that role is relegated to basically being a spectator sport. The notion that the current politics is still embracing the kind of structural change necessary to get the returns on self-interest, particularly for Black people and other disaffected communities, That's a big question. And it's a question that has not been resolved, particularly as we've walked through this last government shutdown. What was yielded out of that process? And what do we anticipate is going to happen next month when we find ourselves again with the specter of a shutdown there? And so we got to talk about what are the structural changes that confirm that there is still hope. And are we getting what we're demanding, or are we simply just going through the motions?
Atiba?
I feel like the backup singer right now, because I mean, both of you were like, really on point. And I know we talked about, what we talked, earlier in terms of hope. I feel like there's just so much right now that is like in front of us. President Kennedy said that the character for the word danger and it also has a character in it that said that for opportunity. Opportunity is here. I think what we have to figure out is how to let go of fear, and I think that is the most difficult piece right now. That's debilitating right now, and to get us out of this despair is fear. And it's the same thing, that we talked about in the prior hour. I think you hit it on the nail also, though, in terms of the work that your father did. The fact that whenever I hear the word hope, it was like a commercial in a sense that I always hear, keep hope alive, is what pulls and pushes me in the work that I'm doing, is to keep hope alive. That no matter, how difficult this is, and the way that we ended the last hour, I said it always seems impossible until it is done. Those are the words of Nelson Mandela. And for them to overcome what they did with apartheid over so long and what we've already overcome here, it's a sad thing, because I'm thinking about the women's movement back in 2018, being at one of the marches and being told that a woman said, "Oh my gosh, I can't believe we're back here again." She was talking about going back to the civil rights movement and then the early 70s, that, yeah, we are right back here again. I think that part of this that's important for us is not only to figure out how to get out of this, but how to figure out how not to go back to this again. Can't hear you, Jesse.
I think when we talk, Todd and Atiba, about the structure of hope, there's some things that I can anticipate because of what Jesse has put in place. And I say Jesse affectionately. Obviously, he's my dad, but I don't find professionally calling him dad to be particularly helpful to the conversation. What the Reverend Jackson accomplished allows us right now to say, what do we want from Gavin Newsom when he comes to South Carolina? You can write that list right now. What do we want from J.B. Pritzker when he comes to South Carolina? We can write that list now. Because that state, in the structure of hope, after Iowa and New Hampshire, was designed for us to determine when we show up in South Carolina what we want. I already showed you can get a vice president out of that state, a running mate. And I've already showed you can get a Supreme Court justice out of that state. Question for me now is, Dr. Yeary, with just the minute that we have left, and I know that I'm going to have to wait until we come forward, can we get DEI back out of that state? Can we get an education department out of that state? Can we get a commitment to the constitutional right to health care of equal high quality and the constitutional right to vote out of that state? When the Democrats turned that corner, appealing to some Jim Clyburn or to Jim Clyburn himself, what are we going to ask for? I'd love for Jamal to be in South Carolina right around there, and I'd love for Rem Sharpton to be in South Carolina right around there. I'd love to do a couple of weeks of KBLA right in South Carolina, talking to our community and our folk and having everybody, every state rep and state senator come. What are we going to ask for when the party comes to South Carolina and gets ready to turn that corner and we determine who the Democratic nominee is? Food for thought. I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. This is KBLA Talk 1580 on the Jesse Jackson Jr. show. It's Wealthy Wednesdays with S. Todd Yeary and our special guest, Atiba Madian.
It's afternoon drive time with Jesse Jackson Jr. Only on KBLA Talk 1580.
I'm Amber Payton with BIN News Now. Chicago Alderman Brian Hopkins plans to introduce a revised downtown curfew proposal with compromises after his earlier version was vetoed last summer. Black Mayor Brandon Johnson, still shaken by last month's fatal loop shooting of a 14-year-old, says violence sets the city back.
Every time something like this happens, of course it frustrates me.
Hopkins says the new plan will extend the notice time before curfews, but has not shared details yet. Serena Williams says she is not making a tennis comeback despite reports she rejoined the sports testing pool. The International Tennis Integrity Agency confirmed she requested reinstatement, but said it's unclear if she plans to return. And two University of Alabama student magazines, Alice and 1956, have been suspended for not complying with new Trump-era DEI policies. Alice focuses on women's lifestyle content, while 1956 serves Black undergraduate readers. Get BIN News Now on demand 24/7 on the iHeartRadio app.
The Crohn's and Colitis Foundation has been at the forefront of inflammatory bowel disease research and care for over 50 years. Learn more about research, education, and support at Crohn'sColitisFoundation.org.
This is KBLA Talk 1580. Talk radio that's music to your ears. We're unapologetically progressive. KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
I'm Reverend Gerald, the life coach. Is someone you love struggling with addiction and mental illness? Is improving your family's health important? Want to leave a legacy that your family can grow? Are you ready to enhance your perception of life experiences? Then wake up weekends at 7 a.m. with Urban Family Focus and get the wisdom, opportunity, resources, and motivation to live your best life. Join the conversation on Urban Family Focus Saturday and Sunday at 7 a.m.
Unapologetically progressive. KBLA Talk 1580. We've got your black.
September is World Alzheimer's Month, a time to shine a light on a public health crisis that deeply impacts Black families. 1 in 5 Black adults ages 70 and older is living with Alzheimer's disease, or AD, and the risk is twice as high compared to white adults. But AD isn't just forgetting a name or losing track of time. Signs of early AD could be repeating questions, missing appointments, or struggling with bills and daily tasks. These things aren't a normal part of aging. Here's the good news. Treatments are available that may help if AD is diagnosed early. If you notice changes in memory or daily routines, whether in yourself or a loved one, don't wait. Early diagnosis and intervention are key to managing AD effectively. To learn more about AD and a potential treatment option, visit treatalsearly.com. That's treatalzearly.com to learn more about the signs and symptoms and a potential treatment option. This message is brought to you by AZI.
This is the story of the one. As the purchasing manager at a manufacturing plant, she knows the only thing more important than having the right safety gear is having it there when you need it. That's why she partners with Grainger for auto reordering, so her team members can count on her to have cut-resistant gloves on hand, and each shift can run safely and efficiently. Call 1-800-GRAINGER, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
An official message from Medicare.
Couple more minutes, and we'll start this month's book club.
You know, I usually love a plot twist, but this year, I'm comparing my options during Medicare open enrollment.
You can't assume your current health or drug plan is the best one for you.
And you got to make sure your drugs are covered. That's important.
So is saving money.
Review all your options at Medicare.gov. Open enrollment ends December 7th. Paid for by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services.
If you've been diagnosed with moderate to severe plaque psoriasis, this is what it sounds like to be 1,000,000 miles away. Imagine being 1,000,000 miles away. Tremfya guselkumab, taken by injection, is a prescription medicine for adults with moderate to severe plaque psoriasis who may benefit from taking injections or pills or phototherapy. With Tremfya, clearer skin is possible. In clinical trials, at least 70% of patients saw at least 90% clearer skin at 16 weeks. Results may vary. Tremfya is also indicated for adults with active psoriatic arthritis. Serious allergic reactions and increased risk of infections and liver problems may occur. Before treatment, your doctor should check you for infections and tuberculosis. Tell your doctor if you have an infection, flu-like symptoms, or if you need a vaccine. Ask your doctor about Tremfya. Call 1-800-526-7736 or visit tremfya.com.
With the new IHOP value menu, $6 is all it takes to go to your happy place, where stacks of pancakes with bacon and eggs are just $6 every day. French toast, sausage, and eggs are, you guessed it, $6. And fluffy omelets come with a side of pancakes and only cost $6. Go to your happy plates every day at IHOP. $7 in some locations. Available every day for a limited time at participating restaurants in the U.S. Hours may vary. No substitutions. Not valid with other discounts or promotions. Prices may vary.
Oh, how's that flu, babe? Did you take Dayquil Intense Flu yet?
Nah, I got this. Ugh, okay, I don't got this.
You stay on the couch, and I'll grab the Dayquil.
Undo your flu symptoms with Dayquil Intense Flu. Dayquil Intense Flu provides powerful relief of your flu symptoms.
I'm ready for that to-do list.
Wow, you do got this.
Dayquil Intense Flu. The daytime coughing, aching, fever, under your flu medicine. Use as directed. Keep out of reach of children.
You're listening to Jesse Jackson Jr. on KBLA Talk 1580.
The Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. 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 King Volley, drop the beat. Come on and talk with me.
I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. You're listening to the J Lunch Club on KBLA Talk 1580, Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. This is Wealthy Wednesdays, where our regular contributor includes Atiba, who is no longer with us from the first hour. But in the second hour, we have none other than the Right Reverend Doctor and Attorney Dr. S. Todd Yeary. Dr. Yeary, how are you, sir? And welcome forward to the show. I think Dr. Yeary has to unmute. While Dr. Yeary's unmuting, I do want to talk, because I know when he comes back forward, we are going to be dealing with this question of the structure of hope. So when you think about what foundation we have within the Democratic Party, that from Iowa to New Hampshire, the first time these Democratic candidates confront any sizable number of African Americans, the South Carolinians have an enormous amount of power in determining who is on the Supreme Court, who the federal judges will be, who's the running mate of the possible Democratic nominee, and exacting commitments from whoever comes through South Carolina to an agenda that might save diversity, equity, and inclusion, that might rebuild the education department, or even fight for a constitutional amendment to health care. I don't think we can understate in 2028 what it means for us to be organizationally prepared in South Carolina to exact an agenda from the Democratic Party that the people deserve. Dr. Yeary, welcome forward to the show.
Profound questions deserve profound answers.
And I can't think of a more profound individual to answer them. Dr. Yeary.
Oh, you meant Atiba. I'm with you.
Your thoughts?
So Reverend Jackson often tells us, you don't get what you deserve, you get what you negotiate. You cannot negotiate from a position of emotion when you're trying to exact returns from political power, right? Because do the right thing, as I often tell my students, is a Spike Lee joint. Yeah. It's not a political philosophy.
Yeah.
Political philosophy is a self-interest. And if you want to expand political power, it's self-interest aligned with other self-interest that moves us closer to an objective goal of the greatest good for the greatest number.
Mm.
Right? So we're going to South Carolina. You can't use national data for a South Carolina context. You got to know South Carolina.
Absolutely.
If you're going to go to Illinois, it's interesting. During the break, we hear Mayor Brandon Johnson and concern about gun violence in the city of Chicago. And it's often felt that as goes Chicago, so goes the state. What's that context? And so part of this is we never have a real advanced conversation with the most disaffected among us to really understand their pain. That is actually what Reverend Jackson showed us on the lead up to the run in '84 when he does the Southern Crusade, particularly. He's going from spot to spot to spot, not only to inspire, right, but to understand. And so if we don't know what's the real situation, in theology, we call it Sitzenleben. It's a German phrase, the situation in life of the people we're trying to appeal to, then many times what we're doing is we're giving them a remedy for scratching in a place that don't itch. Right? So you get so we got a lot of folks running around scratching, but they're looking at you like that's not where I have my issue. Now, the way we lay it out is we know the data, but what the president does, this is what Reverend gave us a blueprint.
Todd, can I ask you this question? Let me ask you a question. When the Democratic Party turns the corner and shows up in South Carolina, seems to me that we ought to be putting forward for the Democratic nominee who we think should be Attorney General. Who we think, and we'd like a commitment to a civil rights department at the Department of Justice that can look, for example, at Southern California Edison and what they are doing or not doing in Altadena. It seems to me that when we turn that corner in South Carolina, we are looking for a Secretary of Education that is committed to equal high quality education for all Americans across the country. And we'd like to hear the potential Democratic nominee address what they're going to do to reestablish the department. And CDC and Health and Human Services and all these executive orders. It seems to me that while we have focused, because Joe Biden showed us something, the power of South Carolina to give us a vice president and a Supreme Court justice, it seems to me that how shall I say it, cabinet selection of qualified people who can extend Reconstruction and not run us into a new Jim Crow ought be part of the demands we make coming out of the first state that left the Union. Now, I'd like to think that we're still maturing in this process, and we don't know the full extent of all of the hope that Jesse Jackson provided for us by moving that primary and Jim Clyburn being the whip of the Congress of the United States. But there's a lot in that state that state needs to understand that they control in the destiny of all 50 states.
Well, so I'll frame it this way. What WHAT comes before who? WHO. When I was in grade school, we learned how to alphabetize words. And so A comes before B. We know that when the letters are the same, you move to the next letter to figure out which word comes first. What in the dictionary and in politics comes before who? See, we got to have a substantive what conversation. Simply giving me somebody for appearances.
Say that.
That's not going to deal with substantive change. It's like having drapes on a window with no glass in it. right? There ain't nothing there.
It's a windbreaker.
Look, ain't the glass. Well, look, and if it's in Chicago, it ain't a good windbreaker at all, because you know that hawk this time of year is different. So if we're not having clarity around the what, then what you get is you get, you know, a whole lot of folk who dance around the issues, don't deal with the stuff. You know, they just out there talking, you know, bumping their gums because they can.
Our producer says, don't forget the when, the where, the who, the why, and the how.
All of it, right? So when we are looking at identifying candidates, our selection of candidates has to be informed by, and I would even argue determined by, the policy agenda. Who has the requisite skill set to deliver the demands that have already been identified on behalf of the president, because cabinet secretaries are basically the subject matter experts and policy heads for the president's agenda. So
Todd,
the issue.
I got to go to break right here. I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. on KBLA Talk 1580. More with Dr. S. Todd Urey. We're going to pick up on this point when we come forward on the J Lunch Club on KBLA Talk 1580.
While you're stuck in traffic, we can at least bring you up to speed on the news of the day. You're listening to Jesse Jackson Jr. only on KBLA Talk 1580.
Cedars-Sinai is helping shape the future of Los Angeles, working alongside local communities and showing up with resources and healthcare programs that open doors for people across the city. Through career development programs like Next Gen Healthcare Pathways and partnerships with over 200 organizations like Black Men in White Coats, Cedars-Sinai is educating and empowering future healthcare leaders right here in LA. With access to education, mentorships, and hands-on experiences, we can build a healthier Los Angeles together. Cedars-Sinai, here for LA.
If you're an adult in need of an accredited high school diploma, the Los Angeles Public Library can help. You could earn one for free in as few as 5 months, online with 24/7 access. You also get a personal academic coach, plus special training focused on 9 in-demand industries, as well as a resume and cover letter to advance your career. Visit the website at lapl.org/diploma. That's lapl.org/diploma.
We ask seniors how to prevent Medicare scams.
My best advice, if you get a phone call, do not talk to the person. These people are well trained. Don't talk to them.
They don't know me. They're just trying to scam me.
Don't be fooled. Hang up. Just hang up.
Never give out your Medicare number.
They're going to get your number to put in a false claim.
If I get a call from someone, I don't pick up the phone. And should I pick up the phone and they ask for information, then I hang up.
How do you detect Medicare fraud?
Just like I check my credit card statements, I check my Medicare statements monthly.
Scammers can get a hold of your number, order medical devices through your account, and you're not even going to know about it if you don't look at your statement.
Check your statement every month. If you get your statement and you see something that you know you did not have done, you report it.
Call your senior Medicare Patrol.
To report Medicare fraud, call the Senior Medicare Patrol at 855-613-7080.
At Lowe's, before the holidays is the perfect time for upgrades and upkeep. During Black Friday, get up to 50% off select major appliances and buy more to save more with up to an additional 25% off when you bundle select major appliances. Plus, grab select DeWalt 20-volt max drill or impact driver kits for just $99. Lowe's, we help, you save. Valid through 12/3. Selection varies by location. While supplies last. See Lowe's.com for more details.
Now back to more of Jesse Jackson Jr. on KBLA Talk 1580.
The Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. The Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. The Jesse Jackson Jr. Show.
I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. Welcome forward to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show on Wealthy Wednesdays. From J Club, you're having lunch with us today. Dr. S. Todd Urey on the East Coast. That's where he is today. But on the West Coast, it's lunchtime. On the East Coast, it's almost the supper club. Hey, Dr. Urey, welcome forward to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. You were making a point just before we came forward. Please continue. I think Dr. Yuri's muted. Okay. Dr. Yuri may not be muted, but I may have lost my ability to hear. You're muted, Dr. Yuri. Anyway, just before, because I don't believe in dead space, I got to fill it up. So at the beginning of the program, I was also talking about, since Jesse, Dad, has established for us the structure of hope in the Democratic primary process, from Iowa to New Hampshire to South Carolina. And I should add, in 2008, I was on the Chitlin circuit for Barack Obama in those major African-American municipalities in Iowa, speaking in some churches so that Barack Obama could project a different image going forward that I think particularly mattered for America to receive his candidacy. There's also a structure in the Constitution for us to elect a leader of high moral character. And the Founding Fathers structured Article 2, Section 2, Clause 1, and they called it the finger of God for that purpose. I'm suggesting to you that every generation has the opportunity to elect a person of character to fulfill this position. And when people make mistakes, their lives can be restored. Their hope can be restored. Their families can be restored, not in the negative use of the power, which we are experiencing under Donald Trump, but in a positive, reaffirming, reestimation of what our faith could be in the Constitution as a life-giving, a life-sustaining, and a redeeming document for which every American, nearly 70 million families impacted by felonization, would have great hope in the second life that the Constitution of the United States would give them. I think Dr. Yuri is back with us. Dr. Yuri, just before we came forward, you were making a point, and I think we lost you. Welcome forward.
Well, I was chatting, and we got all caught up and excited about this discourse around how do we get ready for the next phase of political engagement, right? Because this is an ongoing process.
Yes.
Every year, laws are going to be passed. Public dollars are going to be spent. People are going to have their needs met. Others are going to have their needs overlooked or dismissed. Some interests are going to yield more generational impact in terms of individual and collective wealth. And so we can't just get frustrated and throw our hands up and say, well, my participation doesn't matter, not just my vote, but my participation. And so we have to have some conversation. One, being very clear with ourselves what our needs are, but also having conversations with others. Here's what I think we have to do. And you said we can talk, we can have our agenda now. Absolutely. Because when we look at other interests, other communities, other affiliations, they don't just wait and see who's going to show up to figure out what they want. They know now, whether we're talking about religious institutional interests like the Catholic Church or our Jewish brothers and sisters. They don't wait and say, well, let me see how this thing gonna turn out, and then we can decide what we want. And they have that conversation with both sides, even if one side is highly unlikely, probably won't do anything. You gotta make them play fair, because if you're not willing to talk to both sides, one side's going to ignore you, the other one's going to take advantage of you, and you're still going to be sitting there looking like, why am I not getting what I want? So the Dems can't be given an automatic for Black voter participation. They ought to be given an opportunity to engage Black folk around the agenda. And if you can embrace the agenda, we can embrace your candidacy. I'm not trying to figure out what kind of trinkets you're gonna put around to make me kind of feel good. No. What are going to be the substantive outcomes? What's going to be the labor policy? Not just who's going to be the labor secretary. What's going to be the commerce policy? Not just who's going to be the commerce secretary. What's going to be health policy? Not just secretary of HHS and the surgeon general, right? We've got to get to what are we talking about? And then we can talk about who we're talking about. That is what I think this moment needs. That we got to be just real candid. Put our demands on the table. And when you ask, can we get DEI back? I think what has happened is we've become infatuated with initials and acronyms, as opposed to what does DEI mean substantively, something we can measure. Give me something I can count, I can see. That then we can say, I know I've got diversity when I see this. I know I've got inclusion when this is the outcome. I know that there's equity, and equity is not just in terms of distribution. There's equity in terms of ownership that I can now measure. That's what we want in this moment. And then whoever wants to sit down and have a collaborative conversation so we can build a coalition and then have a substantive conversation around whose candidacy will we support, then absolutely, we can talk. But unless you're talking substantively about what the Constitution really affirms, one is not just democracy in the abstract, but the notion of having freedom, right? Life, liberty, the pursuit of happiness. Those are the things that we want. But we don't just want them in caricature. We want them in substance.
I appreciate that, Dr. Uri. And just before your word of hope, there's a spirit that swept across the nation after Mr. Mamdani in New York won the mayoralty. There was a spirit at the same time that swept across this nation because of New Jersey, the victory there and the victory in Virginia. But if you want to change the Democratic Party and you got, like Eminem said, one shot, and that shot's going to come in South Carolina. When in that Democratic primary, many of the voters are African American and they are working people. They are female. And we've got an opportunity to set the entire nation on fire when we pick the Democratic nominee coming through that Iowa primary process down there where Jim Clyburn is, because hope is structured into this party. We want federal judges, Supreme Court justices, and other. They start right there. Dr. Uri, we have about 1:45 for your word of hope.
It's real clear from our conversation, and I appreciate your consistent and persistent pressing of this issue. If we were to take it to scripture, hope that is seen, S-E-E-N, is not hope. For if you see it, why do you hope for? Hope is the construct of that which is possible that ultimately becomes real. It is the prism through which we put all of our effort to use the strength that we've already got to produce an outcome that we do not yet see. So you don't have to wait for somebody to show it to you. If you have the prism to leverage that power in a collective way that allows you to produce an outcome that then becomes very real, now you've got political momentum to make a difference in the world. That is what Reverend Jackson has preached and taught and lived, that allows us to always proclaim that we must keep hope alive.
Dr. Uri, your contribution to the Jesse Jackson Jr. program is invaluable.
Always good to be with you, my brother. It's a great time, even when I'm coming back from a courthouse out in these streets.
Representing our people. We're so grateful for it. I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. Once again, I want everyone to keep KBLA and put them under your Christmas tree during this holiday season. We're obviously not shopping at Home Depot. We're not shopping at Target. We are putting the target on some people, not limited to Southern California Edison. We still need to hear from Brother Pedro Pizarro. I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. Tomorrow we'll be on Thought-Provoking Thursdays on the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. More on KBLA 1580 when we come forward.
KBLA 15.